Hey, Pratik, man, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good too. So you can hear me properly, right?
Yes, I can hear you properly.
Let me introduce myself. So I've been working as a developer, currently a team lead for almost close to 8 years in the startup space. Across consumer and SaaS space, SaaS, B2B SaaS, gaming. So pretty much a varied experience. Yeah, and that is pretty much about myself. I think so. I'll just give you a brief overview of the round and the verification metrics and everything so that both of us are aligned and on the same page before we start. Okay.
Okay.
Will be primarily an LLD design round. Okay.
Okay.
So we will focus mostly on class level design, abstraction, design principles, extensibility. These will be the evaluation metrics. Um,
Mm.
and then going forward after that, the focus will be on DB schema, API contracts. So pretty much everything related to LLD, data flows, these kind of things too. So what this will be a 90-minute round. Hope that works for you.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool, man. Then I think if all good, I think let's get started.
I would just need help on what do I need to
Yeah.
describe, right? Like the steps and all those
Right,
things.
right. So see, I just reiterate once more on the parameters. So the focus will be on a class design. Okay. We
Okay.
might not have time to run the code end to end. It will
Okay.
be on your class design. It will be on the way you structure your classes, on the how you abstract out certain things, how much you follow design principles, how much you add to solid principles, these kind of things.
Mhm.
How extensible your code is, because obviously the criteria will keep changing. Maybe later, like you probably design a system and then one certain requirement may come in, and then I might ask you how will you fit in this requirement into this. So that is how this will be like. Okay, that is the class design part. Then of course when we go, as I said, we will evaluate the DB schema, API contracts, and these kind of things, right? So over there, the focus will be on your schema, on the tables, on the entities you will be having, on any optimizations, query patterns that you foresee according to the use cases. So I'll give you a list of requirements, and for these requirements, what kind of patterns are you expecting? Then the API contracts, right? So what kind of APIs will you have? What will be the contracts for those? And then, in between the discussion, we might have some case where I might ask you, let's say this use case comes up, then how will change your query, or change your logic, or change your classes, or do like what all changes will you probably need to make to fit in this requirement? Now, when I say changes, it shouldn't be like you have to go back and rewrite the entire code, right?
Mhm.
So it has to be extensible. Um, that is pretty much the evaluation metrics. I just
Okay.
want you to be aligned before we start.
I just want one more thing, right? So when we talk about class design, right? So are we thinking about a domain-driven design model, or let's say a layered architecture, where by domain-driven design I mean like your domain objects have all the necessary functions that they need to function and be. The state will always be there, right? But the function is behavior is there to
Mm-hmm.
alter its state or do some operation, right?
Right.
Versus the layered architecture, right, where you have something like a controller layer, or
Right.
service layers, and repository layers, and the domain objects are just dumb, and they are just data models. So what are we
We are
looking
looking at a domain-driven approach in this. Okay. But having said that, whenever we'll discuss about the API contracts, I might ask you like how or where will you have this logic in what service, how will your interfaces look like? So these kind of questions.
at? Understood.
Cool. Okay, man. ठीक है. Uh, Got it. Then I think if we are good to go, then I'll just get started with the interview. So okay. So let's say we are trying to evaluate based on like the question would be like design something like a Google Calendar. So you've used Google Calendar, right?
Yes.
So let's say that you have to design some sort of a Google Calendar where users can create events, they can schedule events, right?
Mhm.
Um, Before that, so I'll just paste the question as well over here. Uh,
Mhm.
in case you have any code preference, just let me know. I'll just probably, I mean, If you have like you want to code in a specific language in class structure,
Yeah, change it to Java.
it okay. Yeah. So you can see the screen, right? This interview console. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just post the entire question over here, um, the entire use cases and everything.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that is so this is what we are trying to do. We want to design Google Calendar, and these are the requirements. So each user can have their own calendar, and
Yes.
users can create events with attributes like title, start time, end time, guest
Mhm.
list, right? More requirements can be added in the future, like let's say I want to add description going forward, right, in this list of attributes. So that should be done. Basic functionality, guests can accept, reject, tentatively accept, the maybe thing you've seen, right? Yes, no, and maybe. So the statuses. Events can be one time or recurring. So this is critical for this evaluation. It can be a one time event or it can be a recurring event, in the sense I might have a daily stand up call or
Mhm.
a weekly event, or even a custom schedule, like let's say second Tuesday of every month or the first Friday of every month, like this. Okay. um then the requirement is like I should be able to edit the instances, like single instance, like only if I want to edit today's schedule, today's event.
Mhm.
Like let's say I have a daily stand up at 10 a.m, right? And
Mhm.
I want to go back and edit today's timing from 10 a.m to 10:30. I shouldn't affect the overall schedule for other days, only today the timing changes from 10 to 10:30.
Okay.
Okay. This is a notification channel. We can have multiple notification channels. We can have a combination like SMS, in-app, push notifications, email and SMS, like these kind of
Mhm.
combinations. um, and then these are the things that I'm primarily looking at from a DB schema perspective, that we want to see the events day wise over a given date range for a given user ID, right? And whenever you're doing this, this is specifically what I want to narrow down and see what will SQL query that you'll be using to fetch all events. This is pretty much the broad list of requirements. Just wanted to discuss any queries, concerns. Feel free to go through it, and we
Okay.
can discuss that.
Okay. Let me see. Let me go through them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
My
Sure.
questions. The SQL query of fetch all events. Okay, SQL query would come after the database design, right?
Correct. So this you can, like I've just posted the entire question. You can go through the requirements.
Mhm.
This will deal with later.
Okay.
If you feel anything you want to discuss, just call out. Like, we can have an open-ended discussion for this.
Yeah. Okay. So, what I figured out a few core entities here, right? So, these may not tra- these may not map one is to one with the even the database tables or the
Yes, fine.
class. I'm just writing them, right? So I have to
Yeah.
keep in the back of my mind, right? So there's a user there, right? And then there's a user calendar, okay, and then there's a event, okay. Initial contains recurrence, okay, and then there's a notification, notification, and let's say changes to recurring event changes, something like that, right? So, so first I need to define the class structure, right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So,
For
uh,
user, you can assume you have a name, email, and all of those things. Are very simple. Uh,
okay. Okay.
yeah.
So, how should I define it? Should I write the Java type, like how it is written in Java? Or,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
I mean, it's your call. So I want to see your class structure and how you are, defining what any interface you might need or anything like that
okay.
sort. So you can
Uh,
go ahead with class user like that if you want, or
okay.
however you want.
So let's say I would just write something like this, not like the class is user and then bracket their properties, and if there's something implementation or inheritance, I take care of it separately. So when we are talking about the system, we are only talking about these requirements there, right? Or this, I'm not thinking about any different type of user like admin or
No.
right. So there would be user ID, name, email, keeping it to the and mobile, keeping it to a minimum here, right?
Yeah.
And then there would be a calendar would be something like then there would be a class called calendar. And, say it would be something like calendar ID. Calendar ID, name, and list of events. And the user will have so each user will have only one calendar.
Yep.
Okay, so it can have a object of calendar. How do I show it here? Calendar. I'll format it later on. Okay. 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 A calendar will have events. Class. Then I want to create a abstract class event. Okay. Now event will have the abstract class will have the following properties, right? ID and title, start time, end time. Participants. So this would be a list of user participants. Guest list, more requirements in your feature description, all those things. Okay. Okay. So this is an abstract class event, right? So I have given it some state, right? And an event can be so there. Let's say it is a class only, right? And then it can be inherited by sub. Let's say I will give this class class recurring event. Okay, extends event. So there's a so let's see. There would be something called a string where it will contain the recurrence rule. Okay. And the I'll add the behaviors later on, right? I'm just first thinking about the.
That's fine. Yeah.
A calendar will also have, let's say, a user object. Which user does this calendar belong to? Okay. User calendar. Okay. Event. There will be recurrence in recurring event. Add rule in recurrence. Then what can I do? So, okay. So, user. Okay. Notification. Would be.
Pratik, just one quick question. Like,
Mhm.
before you go to notification, are
Hmm.
we done with these or are you giving it
No.
more?
Um, uh, so let me think.
Mhm.
And I can change. So there will be mm, events can be one time or recurring. Okay. Okay. This is done. First is done. Users can have their own calendar. Calendar is also done. Okay. Okay. Uh, okay. Events can be one time or recurring. Okay. Allow user to edit single instance of the event. Okay. Notify users via one or more channels. Okay. See events. See events, including the recurring events. Hmm. So I'll put the user there. Two things are left. Okay. And acceptance of by guests. Okay. So event we have. Am I audible?
You are audible, but I think there's some network issue at your end, showing reconnecting.
The video shows reconnecting.
Yeah, hello?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear. Yeah,
Uh,
now it's fine. Yeah, it's just showing poor connection at your end. I think it's stabilized now. Yeah.
I know. Okay. So, I think one thing is left, which is this one. Guests can accept, reject, and this one.
A
So
quick
this so done.
question here before you go to acceptance and reject. So you started initially defining event as an abstract event, abstract class, right? Um,
Mhm.
can I understand why you were thinking abstract class and then why did you remove abstract?
I thought. Uh, 1 minute. Let me just change. I thought about event as abstract class. I thought there can be multiple types of events, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I got to know that there can be only two types even as of now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if any event would be there in the future also, if we extend it also, there these properties are these the state would be similar, right? there'd be ID, name, title, start time, end time for any event that would be there, right?
Okay.
If this would be there, then it's fine to have a class. If all different types of events had something different, right? I could have made it an abstract class to have the state, and the child classes to have additional state which they want, which
Okay. Okay.
say they are have they have. Right?
Essentially, this event class, you're saying it holds a common functionality like adding participants and all of that, setting title, start time, end time, and all of that, right? So, इसका मैं object, like, can I create an object of this event class? Like,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, from a product perspective, I'm asking. So let's say right now we have two types of events, right? One time and recurring. Are you planning on having separate classes for one time or and recurring, or is this event class that you've defined, is this for a one-time event?
This event class is for one-time event. Recurring event is for this one for recurrence events.
Okay. Um, Another question. So, for example, you have this requirement over here as well, right? That users can allow, sorry, can edit
Hmm.
one instance of an event, or it can edit the entire event. Correct? Do you think this class structure will support that feature?
So the recurring event class structure will support it, right? This will have a recurrence rule as well, and the modified events I'll store. That this is my recurrence, and these details anyways I have in this class as well, the recurring event class.
Mhm.
Uh, I have this recurrence, and then I'll store a separate list of what events are modified for this recurring event. So every single instance, what I'm thinking about recurrence event is that, let's say I want to create an event within a recurrence of like every day, right? For the next 7 days. So that means there are 7 different events, that is on 7 different days, right? But if I have a recurrence, I can store the recurrence, and I can only store the modified events of those 7 days. And that
So,
would be fine,
okay. Going by your example, let's say I have an event scheduled for 7 days. Then how? So you have a one recurring event object,
right?
which will be of that, and then your list of modified events will be empty until and unless I go and modify any one instance. It's not going to populate this list. Is that how it is?
Yes, yes, it will be like that.
Okay.
Now, I can do both, right? I can have a like for one recurring event, I can create multiple events uh, at let's say at the time of the recurring event creation also, but that would not be scalable. In
Got it. And in case you have, so basically, let's say if I have a 7 day recurring event, you are basically just storing one instance, right? Then how does it fit? Yeah, sorry, you can say something.
Yeah, if I have 7 days, an event for 7 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
There would be one recurring event, right? With the recurrence rule, every day, repeat every day, right? And let's see if I modified. Uh,
Can you give me an example of this recurrence rule? How are you thinking?
so I'm thinking recurrence rule can be any kind of a rule, right? That can be interpreted by a rule engine that we have created, right? So let's say daily, weekly. Let's say there are multiple keywords like. By the way, I have to design one more class right here.
Okay.
Event punishment. I will design it later on after answering this.
Okay.
So let's say in our rule engine, we have something like this. There can be multiple keys, right?
Okay.
Daily, monthly, and then uh, uh, what can there can be custom as well. Let's say uh, uh, mm, day would be Tuesday, and there can be a let's say mm, day of the week, and there would be, let's say, the rule can be this as well, day of the week Tuesday, and it can be mm, monthly, or any type of I know multiple uh, mm, rule engines, like simple rule engines like JSON logic can also power this, right? Where we write the rule description
Okay.
in data.
We'll visit this maybe when we are storing it in the database layer. Then probably we can revisit this one.
Okay.
Um, ठीक है. So you were saying something that you had another class that you wanted to.
So there would be an event permission class. So it would be, let's say, event, and participant. So user. So user participant, and then what is the status? Event permission or event acceptance? Acceptance. So status would be an enum. So status. So I can power event participant status. Okay, this is powered. Attributes. This is fine. Each and calendar is there. And okay. Guests event can be one-time recurring. Okay, allow user to edit single instance. Notify user. Notification would be there.
Uh, what is exactly event acceptance? Is it like a one-on-one mapping between event and user? Participant?
So if you look into a database, right, it would be M is to N mapping with the event and user, right? So
Okay.
an event can be accepted multiple users. A user can accept multiple events, right? So event acceptance and so this would be list of user participant. In that place, it can be event acceptance. Acceptance. An ID notification channel and event. I think this should be fine. Yeah. So do you want me to now write the methods as well here?
Yeah, I mean, leave out the getter setter methods. Any other methods that you feel are critical, we should have that.
Okay.
Before that, one thing I wanted to just understand. So, okay, let's see this. If like let's take a look at some of the data that we are having. Let's say we have a one-time event, and then I edit that event to make it a recurring event, right? How does how does your class structure support that?
So class structure support recurring event.
मतलब, I have
Uh,
an event and then
yes,
I
yes.
edit it and I make it a recurring event, let's say. Then what happens?
Mm, 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 mm. There has to be a type as well, which has to be an enum. So event type, which easily depicts me what. Uh, okay, you're saying key. Let's say I change the event type, right?
Yeah, I have
So
an object of event class and then I change it to a recurring event, let's say. So how will you basically now create an object of recurring event from event, or are you like how are you planning to change?
create a new object of recurring event from event.
But wait, so your recurring event doesn't. Okay, so you will be taking all these attributes, ID, time, and all these things. You'll be plugging in a recurrence event and then recurrence rule and then
This
be
will be, this entire thing will be common for both the events, right?
what is event type, by the way?
Recurring or normal.
Okay.
It is an enum.
Okay, so this is an enum. Okay,
Mhm.
got it. And let's say going forward, I want to add description, right? Which is one of
Mhm.
the
Which is
use cases.
which will be I think common to both of them, right? Both the events. So I can add it here in the parent class only.
Okay,
I can
but
make it. I can make event abstract only, right? But I don't have the vision to uh, um, to have multiple event types, right? I know only about event and recurring event. If I get a good enough use case, I can make it an abstract, and that if no event can be created by using only these values, then I would make it abstract. But I don't see a point.
Got
As,
it. But just thinking through, so if you're going and changing your base event class, right, isn't that violating your OCP?
mm, open close principle, right? Uh, Let me think. So by changing meaning, I don't understand.
So if you're, for example, I want to add description.
But
Um,
that would be common for everyone, right? That would be common if I add a new functionality in my feature, in my system, and that is common to everyone. Then I'll have to add it here only. Right?
okay.
I will be uh, mm, extension.
I mean, it might not be a mandatory field, right? I mean, I might have some
Uh,
event description. I might not. I might choose to leave it blank. Um,
yeah.
do you think your class in its current structure can handle that?
Uh, but I think, yeah, if this mm, mm, if this is not a mandatory field, right? So what are the mandatory fields then?
See, title, certain maintainer has and guest list. That has to mandatory, right?
Then I can make this abstract, right? So I have only the mandatory fields here, and uh,
Probably event type is also mandatory. Guessing.
event type is also mandatory, right? We'll know, right? And then uh, so I think these event acceptance would also be mandatory, right? It can be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that event acceptance is basically you're storing the response of your guests, right, over there.
Mhm.
Then
No guess, then no response fine, right? So then there can be a, let's say, a normal event, or single, let's say, one time event. I'm just writing the name as this
okay.
instance event. uh, and then there would be some properties, let's say description, which it will have and it won't have, or, or some property which this guy will have and others won't have, right? If others have all the properties, then I better make it there only, like add it there only, right?
Okay.
uh,
Cool. Uh,
now, yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So let's say we have their own calendar, which is fine. Driver code. Users can create event with the attributes. Okay. Hmm. So, what is the next step? You want me to add the methods here, right?
Yeah, methods and the notification part, right? So, for
Uh,
example, how will you combine? So, I think we did not
okay.
discuss notification part enough. If
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
wrong.
Hmm. So notification is there, and so there would be a class in between, right? Let's say some service class, right? That would create notifications, right, based on the certain changes to events or something like that. So user, so we have to create an event. Okay. Just, so in calendar, we have events. Oh, I didn't do a tab switch, by the way. That's the pop-up that came. So let me first write the methods that I need to have. events. Okay, and yes, accept events. Deploy events. Events can be one time or recurring. Fine. Users allow users to create single instance of all the event of the event. Okay. Edit event and modify get events. So user will have a we are not going right. Okay, user will have get events. It will check its calendar and calendar dot what do you say, calendar dot events it will get, right? And we can have a user ID here or a user object, right? We can decide later. And create events. So this is called notify. So for notifications, I'll use the observer pattern, right? And here, so I think there'll be an. So let's come to notification. Wait, right, just okay, and then create event.
So you want to revisit the methods after you're done with notifications, or what do you want?
I'll revisit the notification thing after I'm done with this. Right? So
Okay.
edit event. Mm, do you want me to enumerate the parameters also?
Yeah, I mean, CRUD functionality is fine. Like get events, edit event will probably take an event object and then do that.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So let's discuss. Okay, any other methods you feel which should be
Except
part of user club?
since we are adding event methods to domain, so I'm adding it here only because these are user actions that user does, right?
Okay.
Uh, so notify would be okay. I think others are quite uh, clear, right? And yeah, others are quite clear, irrelevant, and uh, those things are fine. Let's come to notifications.
Just one quick question. So you defined an abstract class or event, right? Any abstract methods you feel should be in event class?
Uh, yes. So, so event acceptance is fine, right? So the edit event part, right? User can call direct. User can call user dot edit event, and then the edit event can go to events dot edit event, right? So there will be an abstract method edit event, and these things, right? These edit event, the concrete implementation would be given by the this one, uh, the child classes, right? So because
Uh,
editing,
mhm.
let me think first.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Take your
Mm,
time.
one time event. Okay, what to do? So hmm, change the recurrence and add it to. Okay. Seems fine. The editing of both the events can be different, right? One time can be different, and recurrence will have different, and will have to store it in modified events, right?
Okay.
For notifications, the observer pattern would be like there would be an observer, and there's so, so the notification use case would be you when is a notification triggered? Notify user one can be through both. When is a
Uh,
notification?
you can imagine that when an event is scheduled, for example, I schedule a meeting for, let's say, you and
Okay,
me, right?
for all the users, right? All the participants. Okay.
And then of course there can be reminder notifications which can come later as part of the requirements, right? 10 minutes or 30 minutes before the event, there's a notification sent to everyone.
Okay.
Uh,
So let's say uh, there's an event notifier, or say which has these methods. Subs, subscribe, unsubscribe, list, and then there's an subject and observer. Okay, the observer interface is implemented by the observer interface will be update. So when an event is scheduled, scheduled event. Whenever an edit is done, it is done. Okay. So it has already has list. Let's go notify. So this the user. Okay, notifier will have. Let me think. So the event is yes. Update who will update. Is that event will ask never there's a change. Notify. Okay, so the notification logic can be. I'm just modifying the observer pattern right there. So an event class will have an object of event notifier, right? Event notifier can be singleton, right? And so event notifier. So it will the event notifier contains the methods necessary, right? The logic to notify all the all the users in by any channel, right? It will get, let's say, get the event notifier will have a event. It will get the event, right? And mm, mm, and then yeah, uh, uh, it can it will have the logic to just call the email, call the notification by email and all those things, right, on the channel. And
So
then
event notifier is a class that you are defining.
yes, I'm not going by the basic this so they can be if you want to support 1 minute. This one. So I'm not I was not thinking like DDD here. So, so there's a notification class, right? Channel event, and it will do notify. Uh, it will have a notification class will have a notify, right? And so the event class will uh, so the event class will have 1 minute. Event has everything, right? It will call notifier from the notifier and it will create a notification object, and notification object will have everything. So event class can have a notifier class, right, or a notifier. Uh, mm, the channel is anyways here. So the channel is this. So whenever an event is created, so whenever it's created and or event is updated, it will call event notifier dot notify with event. Event notifier will create a, a notification for object for everything, and it will just uh, yeah, it will just yeah, notify based on it will call the notify method there. Yeah, and the
Do you still need the notification class? Like, how is notification tying into this?
mm, so mm, let's say it's a publisher. Yeah, it can a notification class can be used for, let's say, later on for persistence as well, right? But currently, let's say event will have an event notifier object, right? Event notifier object uh, will and it will call notify on that, right? And uh, or if, let's say, we don't have event notifier, then event notifier can be an interface here. So interface if it's there. So
Okay.
okay, so it will notify and notify event. It will create a notification and, notification it will create and notification dot this one. Okay, seems fine. So event notifier can be implements notifier. And then this way, everyone will have to implement modifier. Right? I think the class was fine, right? Right. Because anyways, other then these will also have to implement it, right? These things, these subclasses, right? And if the notification logic has to stay there, then it does not matter much if I like if I have to implement it at both places. Yeah. So
Okay.
I
So
think we fine. Yeah.
let's just think through the flow once. So when are you going to call event notifier dot notify?
Event notifier dot notify. So whenever a user creates an event, right? User object is there, it will do create event, right? Or let's say we are going with layered architecture, then there will be user service which does a create event, right? So anyways, the create event is called an event object is created. An event object is created, then in the let's say, since we are not talking about persistence layers here, right? So in the constructor at the end, we can just call notifier dot notify with the not notifier dot notify, and in post construct something like that. After the object is created, we can call notifier dot notify in the event object with this as the
So notify. Okay. So event notifier dot notify you call it, and
hmm.
how is the notification channel selection happening? Let's say I want multiple, like, so that is what I'm asking. How does the notification class fit
Hmm.
into the event notified class?
So
And that is one question. You can answer both of them together. That is one question. Second question is, what is this happening? What is
uh,
happening about you?
uh, so okay, sorry, this is not um, anyways, this we don't need this here because notification will take care of that. So mm, okay, event is created. So, so basically, what happens mostly is that so we create domain events, right? And based on those domain events, and we the uh, the notification service, right, takes care of like what channel it wants to send this event through. Let's in real life scenarios as well, right? So either it has saved some kind of user preference or something like that, it figures out from the event, or since in this case we have not saved it, so we can the event notifier can have, let's say, can accept a channel as well, at what channel it wants to send the notification through. Hmm. That should be fine, I think. uh, yeah, I think it can accept it can accept a channel as well here, if it is, if we can't extract it out from event. Yeah. And this can be an interface to allow for multiple uh, instances, multiple types of event notifiers, right? In future, if we need, right?
Can you give an example? What multiple types of event notifiers? What do you mean by that?
So there can be. I'm just loosely coupling the objects, right? So in future, if I need a different kind of notification service, right, which does some different operations, right? Then
Is
I
event notifier a notification service
event
equivalent?
notifier is my notification service, right?
Okay.
If in future I need a different kind of event notifier, right? Like let's say anything can happen, right? Let's say it involves multiple steps. It involves, let's say, something like asking a different microservice, right? Anything, right? I'm just loosely coupling my objects here.
Okay, I mean, my main concern is, so okay, leave that aside. So, as just going back to the requirements, right? Your various channels that email, SMS, push, in-app notification channels
Mhm.
that you have right now. How are you going to? So, do you think that this class can accommodate that requirement that we have?
Yes. Uh, so this class will create an object of notification, right? And notification will have the method notify, which knows how to handle. So notification of the channel, this one, what do you say, email will have a method called notify.
Even notified,
Even
then
notify.
why don't you have the notification object, notification instance of notification class instead of event notifier in your event class?
What I can do is I can if we go via that route, if there's no like nothing in between, right? I don't need even notifier class for doing anything extra, right? Then what I can do here is I can create the notification class from the event class on itself, right? Whenever it's there, I'll just let's say ask a factory pattern, some anyhow I implement. I'll ask that to create a notification, just do a new notification, and I anyways have all the details here at my hand, so I can do that as well.
Which one do you think is better suited for this?
For this requirement, that would this would directly creating a notification object there, and
Mhm.
calling dot notify would be better here. We can leave this.
Okay, so now you don't need event notifier.
I don't need even notifier if I don't have to do anything extra.
Okay. So and then there was this requirement as well where I can choose multiple channels at once, right? How are you figuring? How are you handling that?
Then I can create, let's say, since channels are anyways limited, I can create three instances of email notification, or this or SMS notification object, push notification object, and call dot notify on them. Otherwise, you could have had the this one,
Do you
the
think you
notifier
can?
class.
Do you think you can simplify this a bit if you use some design patterns on those lines? Because this is this making the entire structure extremely rigid, right? If I have to go and add some new notification methods going forward, I have to go and change the base class, probably your event class as well, right? Or your notification class. Can you make it more extensible?
Hmm. Then this event notifier, which acts uh, as the publisher, right, which acts as the notification publisher, will be fine. You just mention the uh, event there, and if let's say, and the channels also there. But then again, we'll have to modify. Or you have a notification, mm, you have a notification service there. Let's say in between, you have something called a notification service, and you have let's say notify on created event, created event, right? Uh, and this would have the, let's say this would take event, and yeah, and then yeah, you just make this, right? Just make this.
So you already have this event notifier, which you said is your
Uh,
notification service.
let's yeah, I'm just changing all these things, right? So it can also be an interface, right? And just you just call this one, and this will have this method, and this will make it decouple, right? You won't have to change anything there. Or or a better design would have been like, let's say, have an event service only, right? An event can be a uh, mock thing, right? In real life scenarios.
Sorry, come again. I missed that part.
Or
Did not.
one thing could have been in real life scenarios. I'm talking about systems, right? Where you could have event as a dumb pojo, right? And then as model classes, and then there can be an event service. So event objects node.
Okay, I mean, as long as you're decoupling the notification logic
It's
from
fine.
event, I'm good because all that logic should not be in event class,
Yes,
right?
in event
That's
should not be there, right?
the other thing that I wanted to understand was, so now you event notified, does it exist anymore or is it gone?
It does not exist anymore. So this
Okay,
will
can
be,
you just move that?
you'll call notification service dot notify on created event. It will have the logic to, let's say, call two different things and have the logic for. And
So, you were saying something on the lines of observer pattern. Like, are we still sticking with it, or what happened, or like what happened to that?
this is kind of an uh, uh,
Because what this makes sure is,
uh,
um,
we
all
have
your users will be mandatory. Yeah, yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
we have to use a so in low level design, right? We have to use observer pattern here, right? Uh, uh, but I'm just getting confused in my mind thinking about this systems and like how would I make it there? So it's looks similar like
Okay.
observer pattern only, right? Where you have a notification service object here.
Okay.
And
I think that is fine. We shall move on. Um, so got it. Got it. So is this your final class structure, or are you expecting any changes over here?
yeah, mostly. mm, Calendar ID name events ID. mm, Notify service. Yeah, notification service is there. Event acceptance is there. Okay. Mm, then, and then there can be interfaces for an interface and implementation for things like user service and all those things. I'm not going deep into those things,
We
right?
don't, we don't, we don't need those things. I'm
Uh,
saying, I'm talking about the main domain entities that we have, right? Are we sorted
and
on that?
other entities, we are sorted on that, I think.
Okay. Last thing I
Response
wanted.
to your question later on, I may modify it, but I think that's fine right now.
Okay. Before I move on to the DB side of things, I just want to
Hmm.
clarify one thing. Um,
Yes.
I think, yeah, this string recurrence that you have, right? I think you were talking about how your recurrence might vary. Do you want, like, I just wanted to understand why did you choose string for this and not anything else for the data type?
Mm, So when I would save it in the database, right? If I'm choosing anyways a relational database, right? I would store it in a JSON format. I can have JSON here as well, right? Because
I mean, you can always serialize, right? I mean, you can always do a dot post.
I can always serialize string to JSON, like JSON to string there as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, any class you can just have a dot toString object, which where you can define your own
Yes,
implementation,
yes.
right?
I can serialize into
Uh,
anything.
that is
This
what I wanted to understand. Do you
I can
think?
have,
Yeah,
I can do it uh, as either as JSON, because if I want to have let's say a rule engine type of thing where a rule engine evaluates those things, right? I can have multiple parameters there, or I'm keeping it flexible. Apart from that, I can have uh, recurrence rule class, right? This recurrence rule will be here, and this will contain all the things there, right? Uh, let's say uh, uh, type would be type can be custom or standard. We have multiple types, right? And then if and then there can be a value or something, right? What is its value? And then we can have uh, uh, like we can have the logic uh, uh, to let's say modify this here in recurring event or event service, something like that, a third party service which does not modify it.
And you're pretty much, should we have that as a class or should we have that as an interface recurrence rule?
Recurrence rule. Okay. Right. So, since there are multiple types, we can have this as a mm, recurrence rule as an interface that can be multiple class. Okay. Mm, we can, yeah, we can have it as an interface, but I want to think more on the lines of abstract class, because interface I want to associate with capabilities. I can do it because anyways, my idea is to make it
I
like
mean, you want to have it as an abstract class that works. Like,
that is also fine. Let's have it as an interface. Yeah, it's fine.
okay. ठीक है. I think Pratik, we are almost done with the class LLD part. What I would like to quickly touch upon next is the DB schema that you would
Okay.
have when you run it in production.
Uh,
Given that you are dealing with probably Google scale, okay.
okay.
So what is the DB schema? And then yeah, we'll probably dive deep into a couple of query patterns and the API contracts.
Okay. So user would be an ID. Do I need to? I'll just write PK and all those. Do you
Yeah,
want me to?
I do need the constraints defined.
Constraints I will define. Do you need the data type written for normal things like?
For normal things, we don't need ID. Would probably be an UUID, so that is
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Uh,
Hmm. So name, email, all would be varchar. Right. Mobile also I'll store in varchar.
okay.
Okay. And then there would be an user calendar. User ID. mm, User ID. And then let's say name of calendar, and it would also have an ID. Right. Okay. And let's say I think okay. And there would be an event. So ID again PK, and name, or let's say title, description, and so here user ID would be foreign key. Anyways, event, then in user ID, calendar ID, as foreign key. Okay. Okay. Uh, Event, and there would be event participant. It would be many to one table uh, based on the user based on the like created user and event, right? So it would be something like event ID fk, user ID fk, event ID, user ID, uh, user ID fk. Okay. Let's say acceptance also can be there. I'm taking it as string acceptance. I don't want to add it would it would be enum at app layer. I don't want to add
Okay.
it to database, right? Because again, at Google scale, RDBMS would not allow me to update the enums without
Okay.
blocking the table. Right? Event ID, user ID, acceptance. Uh, so all related things can be there. Okay, then there can be a notification. 1 minute. Event here only will have recurrence rule. It would be JSON. I can store it as JSON or string. Anyways, I can store. I want to store it as JSON in this scenario. Okay. Uh, Notification. This is fine. This is also fine. Notification would be ID, uh, mm, 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 content, and channel user ID, and huh, this should be fine. And what else is there? Interview reference calendar, uh, calendar notification, calendar open notification and acceptance of yeah. Okay, user okay. User ID. Yes, I think this is it.
This is it. Okay.
Hmm.
See, user ID page. Okay.
Okay.
One quick question. One quick question. Why have why are we going with a foreign key over here? Like, why are we going ahead with the constant?
Sorry, why do we have foreign key here in user ID?
Mhm.
So,
I mean, why can't I simply have the user ID column
hmm,
without the constraint of foreign key?
mm, because it is related, right? User ID is a foreign key. It tells about it contains the ID of the user. So I want to have it as a foreign key, right?
But what usually, like, what is the advantage if you have a foreign key constraint or disadvantage of it?
So advantage is there that we have a logical relationship here, so we cannot have user calendar with a user ID which does not exist in the user table, right? But one of the if you don't have a user, then you cannot have a user calendar with that user ID, right? If you try to insert a user ID which is different from whatever is there in that table, it won't accept, right? The disadvantages of a foreign key is that at scale, right, every write needs to be validated, right? So that is something that we need to take care of. I have seen companies where with a lot of scale, right, they do with foreign key constraints. But yeah, that is something uh, we can take a call.
Okay. Um, and why does event have a calendar ID?
So each event belongs to a user calendar, right?
It can belong
So
to multiple user calendars, right?
an event can belong, then you will create multiple different events for that, right? One user will have one event, and
So
one user can have one calendar, right? One user can have multiple calendars. That would if that is the case, then that would
no, one user can have one calendar. One
okay.
user can have, I can schedule an event with hundreds of guests,
Hmm.
right? So an event can have hundreds of users slash calendar
So
IDs.
this is the calendar ID of the user that created it, or mm,
Do you really want to store it in this way?
mm, so the thing is, right, if I have five different Google calendars for five different purposes, work, personal, or recreational, right? If I create
No, we clarified this at the beginning here. One user will have one calendar.
okay, one user will have one calendar, then there's no need for this one.
Okay.
Okay, user calendar is
I mean,
fine.
it's ideally, I think it's closely tied to your email address, right? For example, Google Calendar relates to your Google email.
Hmm.
So, assuming you have one calendar per user, then your event has, okay.
Mm, then I have a user ID. That is user ID is for like created by.
Can you give me the average row size for event?
So let's say ID. If I'm taking, let's say UUID, I think it's 128 bits, right? 28 bits. 128 bits. Yeah. So it is 16 byte. 16 byte plus title. Let's say we are restricting title to let's say 50 characters. I am just assuming. If we can make it 100 as well. And description, let's say we are having it as not a long description. Let's say uh, 255. I'm just thinking about that. Created by is again user ID, which is again 16 bits, 16 bytes, and then recurrence rule JSON. Uh, so how is JSON stored? I think post MySQL does it. MySQL assigns, I think, a certain size to it. Let's say it is X. I don't remember. I think it would be at least 500 bytes. Right. Mm.
Okay.
So based on JSON, right? Or if it is not, I think, I think if there's a setting for this one, like the size of JSON column, then we can tweak that as well according to our needs. But yeah, so 250 plus 50, 300,
Around
right?
1 KB probably.
Hmm. Hmm.
Got it.
Around 1 KB.
Okay.
Hmm.
And ठीक है. One couple of questions. So, how about recurrence rule? Do you feel it demands another table, or do you want to store it here itself?
So, if I am choosing JSON for a recurrence because I've seen it in products and systems where there's multiple different uh, changes. Let's say I would give you an example of something like this. Uh, uh, JSON logic, right? It's a rule engine where you can do anything. There are multiple rule engines as well, rules and all those things. They're complex, but let's say we come at even the JSON logic, right? It is very flexible. It can, if it gives you rules for, you can create almost any type of rule there, right? So I don't have to figure about, I don't have to think about changing requirements here in this way, right? My application layer can take care of executing this one, right? If given that, right, if I have a mechanism that I can define a very concrete set of rules, like this parameter does this parameter does this, and all those things, then I can have a recurrence table. It's then I don't need JSON, right? Because anyways JSON will have some limitations, right?
In terms of the current requirement, what would you suggest?
Mm, so custom is very vague, right? I can have anything there.
Yeah, I mean, like custom as in Vegas, and I'm not sure if you've used this custom feature, so I can have every weekday, every alternate day, every 2 days,
Mm.
every second Tuesday, every alternate week, every
So if
month.
that is
So
the case, then uh, event recurrence will again be another table, right? Where you'll have just, let's say, uh, type would be daily, monthly, weekly, or custom, and then again we'll have a let's say value associated with that. If that is the case, then you can have this. Uh, when you create an event, you create on this separately, this like at the same time, and then yeah, recurrence ID.
got it. And last question on this: what kind of indexes would you need, if at all you need any
So
index?
indexes depend on the query patterns, right? If I'm assuming MySQL or Postgres, I have, let's say, get all events, edit events, update events, accept invites, and mm,
So you might have to, for example, in a business use case, right? What would you use a calendar for? Every day you would go probably in the morning. You'll check once,
mm,
and you probably even check at a week level for the next 5 days. Like given a start date and end date, you probably want to segregate into day-wise breakdowns and see the events that you have, right? Um,
so yeah, since one user has one calendar, right? If so, basically the flow would be you would fetch all within a day time range. You'll fetch all the events, right, for a user. Right. Now, let's say I'm powering this requirement. Uh, uh, that would be user ID. A B-tree index would be on user ID, start time, end time,
just you are
right,
defining on which table.
on event.
Okay. Could you
Okay.
please write it the event table? These are the indexes.
Event table index.
And also specify if like are you having a composite index for all three fields, or are you having individual indexes defined for user ID, start time, and end time.
Sorry, this is a this one. This is a composite.
Okay, for all of them.
Hmm. So my thinking is I can use this composite for this one as well. Like, uh, uh, mm, 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 huh. So for composite, I can do queries on user ID. I can do queries on user ID start time. I can do queries on user ID start time and end time. All
Okay.
three, right? Because it will be multiple layers and it would be a B tree type index. Right. So this will power my this requirement, right? Now, what else is there? Event request.
So, yeah, I mean, you want to go through the tables, we can do that. Or if you want to go with this query, right, the SQL query to fetch all events, we can do that as well.
Fetch all events for a start time or end time. Do you want me to write the SQL query?
Yeah, the SQL query to fetch all events day wise for a given date range
Okay.
for user ID.
For day wise, for a given date range for a user ID.
Yeah, and do remember that we have recurring events in this case as well.
Hmm. So, and you want all the recurring events as well in this one, right?
Ideally, yes.
So all the recurring events meaning if it is weekly, then one, uh, then on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all days, right? You
Yeah.
need all 7 events. So why not do it at that get all the recurrence event at the application layer? Then?
Then what will your query look like when you're fetching from the DB?
So let's say I'll do this. Select star from event where user ID is equal to right, and start time is equal to and end time is equal to yeah. And then group by mm, mm,
You
mm,
need all the event details as well, okay? Like the name of the event and everything.
I'm doing star right
Okay.
and group by this one group by some kind of let's say there would be group by okay. So there are two ways right here. Mm, mm, Either I do this at the database layer or I do it at the application layer. If I do this at the database layer, it would be something like group by uh, then date. So it would be do this by group by then I won't have other details, right? If I just to so I have multiple approaches. First one would be so let's say uh, you on application layer itself, right? You do for per day you run uh, each query. That would I think result that would be expensive. Right?
So I
Multiple
think,
D.
okay, I do get this point that the recurrence portion you can offload to application layer, but I think rest of the fields we should be able to fetch from the database.
Yes, that's the fields we should be able to fetch from the database. I'm thinking about that. So user ID and I- so when I do a group by, I'll have only that date. So date would be there, and then should be there. Okay. I think then multiple queries would be required, right? Or then there would be this one date. Let's say I do a group by date, and right there's certain I think SQL functions which will uh, do some modifications here, but it would be something like date and uh, let's say I don't need a count as well, right? So I'll do this and uh, and then there would be something like select star from event where uh, user ID is equal to this, and date in, and let's say start time. We do a I think there's something called, we can do a function which makes it like that, that the start time and end time lies between this is on this date. I think there's a SQL function for that. I don't remember.
Other than that, right, I don't understand why are we going on user ID. This is the created by user ID, right? I can be invited to multiple meetings or events as a guest, correct?
So there, acha, okay, this is created by only. I was just writing this. It is created by only here also.
Yeah, but I when I'm checking my calendar, usually I get to see the entire view, right? All the events where I'm invited.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah. So event is stored here as this, and then event participant. When you created by, we have participant. Yes. Let's say event participant. I have a date here as well. Event participant. So I can, oh, acceptance can change. Okay. Let's say I have something like created on here, right, which should be a date. So this, what I can do, right? I can have mm, for each event, right? Regardless of whether it is created by me or if I'm a participant, I just create an entry here, right? An event participant. This is one of the approaches that I'm thinking about now. There will be an entry here, right? So for the creator, it would be by default acceptance would be yes, right? And for others, it would be pending and all those things, right? So and there would be a created on date here as well. I can do something like this to or date time, whatever it is, right? And then I get all the events from here and then do query on this table. This will be fine, right?
Uh, is that what you are thinking? Like, is that what you can like? I don't. Firstly, why should this created on be on event participant? Why not on event?
Created on, yeah, by default all my tables will support this one, created hat, created on, and all those things, and
This
it will
one
also
only
support.
works because this one is just going to be repeated, right? In event participant, you can actually have this as an identifier to mark when that participant responded, like accepted the invite, rejected the invite. You can mark that as that identifier. If you want to track the event creation date, it should be an event. It should not be an event participant, right?
No, yeah,
Secondly,
it's
yeah,
great. Okay, so one more approach here would be mm, mm, so there would be, since there's an event and event ID acceptance, right? So another event participant. So there's a table for each user, right? For each user's events. So this table does the same thing, right? This table can do the same thing. So we can query on this anyways has a many relationship between event and user, right? So for each user there will be an entry for each event, right? So I can query on this one, and then to get all the details I can query on the event table.
can you give me the query? Grouping
So
by
select star from, or select event ID from event participant, where user ID is equal to this, and, and created on between uh, time range, let's say, less than equal to and greater than equal to. And there also every table will have, I'm assuming, created on, created by, and all those things. So uh,
Mm, again we are going, so this created on, right? Why are we going with event participant? I can create an event today and it can get accepted after 3 days, right?
uh,
So this created on is not the right identifier.
I'm not saying it's created on would be created. whenever an acceptance is there. It is a many-to-many table which represents the relation between two different entities, right? Event and user ID. It will be created at the it will be created. You can create an entry at the same time as that of the event creation, right?
Why are
And
we doing the same thing in two different places? Event also has the same column. Event participant also has the same column. Then in
for
that case,
better query performance.
why do we need a better query performance on created on? Anyways, you will have to join on event, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can write a join query there. I was not thinking about the join query. Yeah, you can remove this and have a join query here, right? So select event. I forgot about the join query. Select event, all the details, right? Event star I'm writing from event dot star from mm, from from event where uh, join user ID is equal to this. Join uh, join event participant. Join event participant. Uh, um, let's say event participant is ep dot event ID is equal to event dot event ID and event dot time range is between x and y, right? This will be sufficient, right?
And how are you going to segregate it day wise?
Segregate is at day wise. When I have mhm. So when I join this, I can have group ID. If I do, then again same thing. I can do it in the application layer. Yeah,
Can't we do it at DB layer itself?
I can. We can do it at this layer. We can do it at anyways. That whatever you can do at application layer, mostly you can do it at database layer as well. But I'm not able to think about that.
Okay, no issues.
Yeah.
I think we are anyway short of time, so I'll just move
Hmm.
on. Can you just briefly talk about the APIs over here that we'll be having?
So I'm assuming HTTP based RESTful APIs, right? So get event, update event. So do you want me to write that as well? Get
Not yet. Give
slash.
me the API payload for, let's say, create events. What kind of API signature will you have and the contract of that? And then probably just give me this use case that we had, right? For a particular user over a time ring. Get me
Okay.
all these two API contracts will suffice.
So I need title, description, list of guests, list of user IDs, or list of emails. Right. So and response would be to 200. Right. Then get event
What
would be
all other response codes?
sorry,
What all other response codes can we have over here?
201 we can have.
Can
And
you share the difference between these two codes?
so 200 means okay, and 201 means it's created or an entity was created. It says that 200 can is a generic this one, right? A response code, which can be used for anything, right? Get also you can use 200 anything, right? 201 specifically tells you that an entity was created, right? Or
Okay.
something, right?
Okay.
I think 203 is also there, where you when you don't give a response in a response body, you do 203 no content. I think.
Mhm.
So get also will all gets will have 200, okay, right? And get will be event ID. Um, and what were other APIs that you were talking about? And
So this is the main API that I need.
get
This use case, right? Um,
which API? Sorry,
I just pose the question over here once more. So this is the main one.
we should be able to see the events device over a given date range. Okay, so in this the query parameter. So this would be for a single event, right? And all those
Okay.
things.
You can ignore this. Yeah.
this get slash events. Yeah, and then you can have uh, query params. Query params would be events, date range, start time, end time. Right. I'm not talking about user ID here in any of these, right? Because I'm taking that from the authorization header,
Okay.
the requested, right? Start time, end time, and there would be recurring events. So, anyways, that should take care of everything. This should be fine. The response here would be an array of, let's say, event array. So there would be some kind of DTO object, which or response object, which will return. I'm just writing it as event, let's say, response. It will contain all the things, right? It will contain event ID, event name, title, and all those things. And recurrence would be flattened out here. So for that time range, or better, what we can do here, like so, what we can do here, right? If the front end client can understand, right, we can just send the recurrence also here, recurrence with recurrence rule, and the front end client can display to save space in the response. We can do that.
Do you think that's a good idea to do that?
So yeah, to save space, it would be a good idea, right? Let's say you want a 1 month of events, right? Then you do a recurrence. You don't give the exact logic what you are using it. You give some kind of mapping there, right? Where so that the user cannot figure out by looking at the client side that what actually we are like doing, right? So you can have some kind of mapping there as to how you show it on the front end.
Okay. And one more thing, right? In case this API starts getting slow, how would you debug this? Like, since we talked about this, right, that to reduce to increase, I mean, the loading time and everything, we can send the recurrence rule.
Mhm.
Um, in case, let's say this particular API gets slow, starts getting slow with time, then what would you?
So what I can do here is right now. So first of all, the first plan of attack would be adding indexes, right? If at a certain point, the table would become huge, so then you would have multiple different options right there. So first of
So you already added all the relevant indexes in this, I'm guessing.
uh, oh,
Uh,
let me
the
think.
ones that you defined, right? Those are the relevant. Any other index apart from these that you want to add?
You can give me the use cases. If I've written this API,
Mhm.
then
No, not
oh,
this API.
not this API, the one below it. So there should be an index on event. Uh, let's say start time, end time, and user ID. Yes, for this for powering this one, I can use this.
Okay.
I will I can write event if you give me an API, like a sort of access pattern I need before writing an index. But for this one, I think this
Yeah,
should
this is the API. Let's consider only this API for now.
okay. So I think yeah, this is fine. So
Yeah.
user
So
ID anyways will have always start time. I can also have, yeah,
so
an index.
first we go and check the indexes, and let's assume that you have already defined those indexes.
Yes.
Then even then, if it's not, the loading time is high.
So
What?
I can create multiple read replicas of the entire database, and first step would be read replicas, and Power reads through that,
Okay.
or simultaneously what I can do is read replicas can also be there, and then load increases. Then I can have cache as well. I can have some kind of cache uh, before increasing my read replicas as well. So let's say I have some kind of cache, a distributed cache like Redis would work fine.
Mhm.
So, but with cache, static data caching is fine, right? But let's say with cache comes a problem of ensuring that the cache does not go stale, right? So there are multiple different strategies there, right? And if there's dynamic changing data, then if I power through read replicas, then that is fine, because the read replicas will anyways have any sort of mechanism for replication, asynchronous or synchronous, anything, right? That would ensure, that would not be my responsibility to ensure data sync between the
Mm.
other storage, right? So you can have caches, you can have read replicas there,
So one question here, whenever you going ahead with read replicas, there is a risk that you run. Data consistency might get hampered a bit, right? At times, eventually it will be consistent, but let's say
With
you
what? Sorry.
data consistency. So
With
let
with what?
if you go ahead with multiple read replicas,
Uh-huh.
then your it might take some time for your write to be propagated to all reads, and then
Hmm.
you might have to live with some inconsistency.
Yes.
Eventually, things will be consistent. Do you,
Eventually, it will be consistent.
do you think for this business use case that is okay?
Mm. So there are multiple approaches there as well. Like partitioning and sharding, I've not come to. I know these concepts. I'll come to it later on. But powering via read replicas is better to start with, right? So for this constraint, what is it? So getting all the events that I am, right?
Mhm.
I think this is fine. If even if what would be the replication lag, right? The replication lag in a good provision system would not be high, right? If I have like the CPU usage on my database is correct, right? Then if I go with AWS standard also, then it would be a second or 2 second max,
Okay.
right, of replication lag. If my database is going much high, then I need much higher in terms of write performance in terms of CPU usage. Then I
Mhm.
need to take care of reducing that load, right? But replication is basically very fast.
Got it. Okay. And how about like when will you start thinking in terms of sharding and partition? Because as I said, right, you're dealing at Google scale.
So
So
so yes, so I told you the first plan of action, right? If that is also not justifying my SLAs and all those things, right? Then what I would think about first is archival, right?
okay.
Archiving the state table into to make this table short, right? And let's say the indexes also become short and all those things, because
Okay.
I think uh, older events rarely those are accessed, right? Rarely, very rarely those are accessed.
Mhm.
So first thing would be archival, right? But again, archival will have archival policies, and then you archive at certain intervals. What if the data becomes very big?
Mhm.
Even archival cannot solve it. Then you would go to partitioning, right?
Okay.
Or sharding, right? So partitioning and sharding in NoSQL and SQL are related and not related at the same time. I would like to, since we are talking on MySQL here, we can go to different databases later on, but let's constrain ourselves to MySQL. So what happens with MySQL is that when you partition, you'll have to partitioning is again on a single database server, right? Sharding in MySQL means sharding on multiple different instances. The definitions are different across multiple databases. For MySQL, this is it. So
Mhm.
sharding. So let's assume with sharding I mean multiple databases. With partitioning, I'm seeing multiple partitions in the same database server, physical
Okay.
database server. Okay. So I'll go with partitioning first, and again at Google scale that will also not be fine, right? Then what I'll do is I'll make the partitioning key and sharding key same, and will distribute the load across multiple different physical database servers, right?
Okay.
But the problem with MySQL, right, is that
Mhm.
um, it's very fast, right? If you go by the recent numbers of Shopify, right, also it's very fast. But the thing is, uh, when you have complex partitioning logic, right, then you need a layer in between,
Mhm.
and a layer in between which will decide which partition which shard I need to talk to.
Basically, partition manager you are referring to.
Partition manager, right? So NoSQL solves it very easily because they have it inbuilt. But the problem with MySQL is that you have to use either if you have simple use cases like I had in one of my previous companies. So
Mhm.
you can build a layer yourself, right, and do some connection pooling and all those things to multiple different instances there.
Mhm.
Apart from that, you would have to use Vitess or something like that. Vitess was created by YouTube for MySQL partitioning, right? So this is same with Postgres as well, right? The so
Hmm.
there are multiple challenges here as well, but it can be done. It has and it is done, right?
ठीक है.
If you want me to give a solution for
No,
NoSQL, right?
that is fine. I think MySQL is fine. The last bit that I wanted to understand was, let's say you're doing a post API call over here, right? For post events. And for example, if let's say I'm the HR manager and I want to have an all hands meeting, right? So you can imagine the number of participants to be huge, right? How will you ensure that your post API call does not have a high latency?
So I think that an event there's a limited number of this there's a limited number of participant count in any of the event that we create. I think Like Google Meet also, I think, allows a max of 200 or 1,000 users, right?
It can see Google Calendar can have any event, right? Can be Zoom call, can be
Ah,
actual physical event, right? Like
ah.
offline event.
So,
Just a
is there a bar on the upper bar on the number of participants there?
right now. I mean, if you have to build for scale, obviously, I mean, you can't always deal with billions of people, but let's say you do have significant number of employees. Let's say I'm an Amazon level company, but I have a lot of employees, right, in
Mhm.
multiple chains, and uh, and I need to schedule a meeting to invite everyone, right? So in
Uh-huh.
case API latencies increase for post, like how you do design your APIs, that was what I wanted to know. You have a post API call, it
Okay,
gets
okay,
the
understood.
load.
You want me to enumerate the flow, right?
Yeah, just the
Flow and
data.
how would I handle that scale there, right?
Correct.
So let's say, so yeah, the post API takes these things only, right? Uh, and anyways, I thought it was understood like the service which will be handling this post API would be anyways distributed, like it will have multiple different instances, right?
That
And
is it be
yeah,
answered
traffic would be
instance.
load balanced. It is given, right? So what will happen is, let's say, list of emails. This is let's say, however much you want to add here.
20,000 employees or 30,000 employees. Amazon, I think, has 1 lakh employees. So even you can imagine that as well, right?
And yeah, you can send that data, that much data through post API, and it will be fine. And since you are sending only email IDs right there, so you do this, and the what you do is you create an event. Uh, so the flow would be uh, create an event, right? And okay. Hmm. And event participants create an event, so that would be very easy, right? It is just one entry right there. And event participants, what I can do, hmm, event participants would be, I think, did you change the?
No, no, I did not change. I just added the question because that is one checklist that I have to do.
Okay, okay. So yeah, you create an event, and then you have to create those many event participants as well, right?
Uh-huh.
So let's say you're dealing with a number, let's say 50,000 here. So that would mean 50,000 inserts at the same time if I'm going with the brute force approach, right?
Uh-huh.
Which is not at all scalable. If you, let's say, 10 different calls, it, it would blast, right? So you create an event, and let's say you uh, uh, sync, what do I say? You create an you decouple the flow here a little bit. So you create an event and send, and because I'm agree, I'm thinking you can take it. It does not matter if I notify. I want to notify my participants in near real time, but it
Uh-huh.
does not matter if I miss it by a few seconds as well, right? So I
Right.
decouple the flow here, right? So yeah. So from brute force approach, this would be my direct optimization, that send it to some kind of um, send a message to uh, messaging queue, right? It can be a queue, it can be a or a topic. We can decide on it later on, or like after I complete the flow. And what it will do is uh, uh, it will this message will contain event, right? Event and all the participants that it has,
Uh-huh.
because that came from the request, right? So now what you do is mm, have some kind of mechanism to consume this message on any on a different set of worker pods,
Okay.
and uh, ensure data. I'll expand on it, okay? And ensure database write on the event participant row table, right? So mm, so it will consume the message, and uh, create an insert statement there. And it will and since my that table also would be partition, so that will also we can write it there using this either batching of 500 writes and
Okay.
500, some kind of strategy we can, different strategies we can use here. But I'm thinking in real life they would not be using MySQL, right? Because another database technologies can give me much higher write performance if I use, let's say, Apache Cassandra.
Okay. ठीक है. Let's leave what kind of database they're using outside the scope. Let's just focus on the flow. So let's assume you have events. Then you said you'll be having batching on the consumer side, right?
Hmm. Uh, Batch writes on, let's say, 100, 200, let's say 500 there, and ensure that this happen, uh, ensure that this happens atomically, right? So what we can do here is, uh, one of the strategies I'm just thinking out loud would be, with this message that you consumed, you create uh, five different messages.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. Or let's say here also you created an event uh, and send multiple messages. Send uh, messages uh, uh, messages to messaging queue, right? It can be batched for per 500
Mm-hmm.
participants, and then 500 participants rights can be easily handled, right?
Okay.
There. And here, after this point, right, after sending message to a queuing technology, you return response. Hmm. This can be done.